Serious families with incest members. Does the rest of the family know? How do they feel about it? Hi Reddit guys. Subscribe now to make me happy. My great-grandparents were first cousins. They were married for a couple years before they found out and divorced. Then remarried and had 4 kids. Anymore we make a couple jokes here and there, but it has been brought up in arguments a few times. It's also fun to tell the younger cousins and see the disgust I must have had when my aunts and uncles told me. Pretty sure cousins marrying has been common throughout history and in some places today. My grandma has a half-sister who has twin daughters. One of the twins started dating her first cousin, father's nephew, about 3 or 4 years ago. It caused a bunch of it at first. Everyone was disgusted, they got made fun of, the jokes got worse after they had a baby together. The child's forehead looks like it has a dent in it. They're still together, expecting child number 2, and no one really gives a it anymore aside from the odd incest joke or two. Aunt first cousin marriage is legal in a lot of states, including California. As long as it's not double cousins, it's legal. If your dad's brother married your mom's sister, their kids would be your double cousins. Way back in my family's lineage we found evidence of cousins that married, and we joke about not having a family tree, but a family wreath. I don't know how it was treated at the time, as this would have been at least 5 generations prior. Family wreath. I love it. When I was in school we used to insult each other by saying your family tree doesn't fork, it knifes. My mum's dad actually assaulted some of his daughters when they were around 13, 14, and one of the daughters continued sleeping with him, having sex with him into a much later age. She's had a few children with him. My family do not really acknowledge it at all and keep it on the hush. The children are entirely aware that their granddad also pairs up as their dad. No one talks about it, but everyone knows it. It's actually a really weird sort of situation, because some of my mum's sisters despises her dad for what he did, and the effect it had on her siblings as well as mother growing up, as well as hates her sister for continuing to do so. But a lot of the others don't even seem to think there's anything messed up with the situation at all and talk about how they love him, he was amazing, etc., and completely turn a blind eye to it. This could be a facade. I don't know. The situation goes a lot deeper than just the above, and it's very awkward, uncomfortable when he's brought up. Jesus Christ. What? Nothing ever happened, but my cousin went through a bad breakup and he tried to put the moves on me by sending dirty texts and a dong vid. I ceased it. Only 2 other people know were my other cousins. We were grossed out and I haven't talked to him since then. It's good it stopped. Did he just have no boundaries? No, he didn't. I think he was really confused and heartbroken, so I try to give the benefit of the doubt. I won't open a convo with him again though. That's kind of you. I have family on my grandma's side who are first cousins who married each other, arranged marriage. They lived in the same village, with a very small population. While it wasn't an issue in the family at marriage, both of their daughters have thalassemia because of it. One of the daughters only has a life expectancy of 30 and has to have blood transfusions monthly. The parents who married them off regret the marriage. I have thalassemia. Hope I wasn't an incest baby, but the life expectancy does sound appealing. Incest doesn't cause thalassemia. You can inherit it if both of your parents have it or are carriers, which is probably highly likely if they're related. It's highly common in people from Mediterranean descent. I'm pretty sure when people say that incest causes problems it's the carrying of defected genes that they're specifically referring to. I don't think this is exactly incest, but it threw me for a loop for a bit. I am the family historian, and while working on my grandmother's side of the family, I found that I have a great uncle, let's call him Uncle A, who got married to Aunt A and had kids. Aunt A died and he married her sister, Aunt B, and they had some kids. They got divorced and she married his brother Uncle B and they had some kids as well. Also, it was apparently common back in the day for siblings to marry into the same family. My great grandpa did that. He married my aunt's mum, had my aunt. Aunt's mum passed, so he married her sister and had my granny. Granny always said that she had a sister cousin. My grandparents were first cousins. They had 3 kids. Oldest one no issues, second died of lupus in her 30s, and my dad, the youngest, just severely depressed and ADHD. I don't think any of those issues were related to the incest. My grandmother was batshit crazy, so they are lucky they turned out as well as they did. My dad was a menopause baby and she told him his entire life that he was retarded due to that. I do not envy his childhood. One thing that did creep me out is when my uncle passed away earlier this year. In the obituary it said son of the late first name last name. X. Margaret Smith. I couldn't believe she actually took her maiden name as her middle name in that situation. Sigh. My great grandparents were first cousins in Michigan, married before 1920. They had 10 kids. Most died in their 50s 60s due to cancer. Could have been from smoking though. Several lived to their late 80s and 1 out of 10 lived to be 90 plus years old. Only mental health problem was one that had several children die, and that drove him to alcoholism and a bit batty. One time when my dad was young, his friends set him up on a blind date with a girl and they were really hitting it off, but after a few more dates they discovered they were second cousins and ended it there. So awkward lol. We pretend we don't know about it and we've mostly stopped associating with that side of the family, because the new generation have no qualms about dating relatives either. Given the family tree so far, they're all double or triple related by now and it's just freaking weird. Don't know if this counts, but my great-grandfather married his daughter-in-law's sister, meaning to my father his step-grandmother on the paternal side and his aunt on his maternal side were the same individual. I don't think they ever had kids though, as my great-grandfather was a lot older by that point. Nobody was too hung up about it, but we don't usually talk about that great-grandfather much, because he was also a serial arsonist who burnt down 5 houses to collect insurance money and was never caught. My eyebrows nearly flew off at that ending. Pretty dark, but some genetic testing and a bit of digging has revealed that my mother was very likely conceived through incestuous rape between my mother's mother, my grandmother, and her own uncle, my great uncle. The people who know the truth for certain are long since dead, save for the great uncle, but he's not far off himself, but it would explain a whole heaping pile of family secrets and, you know, the results of the genetic testing, which are fairly hard to deny. I don't think anybody in the family knows. They're a vast, distant family rife with lies and terrible people who likely wouldn't care if they knew. Though she was adopted out at a young age, my own mother fits right in with them. She's a dumpster fire of a human being, though whether that's from her genes or her own abusive upbringing is yet to be determined. If the family did know, they most certainly wouldn't stop the behavior. I met said great uncle only once in my life. He aggressively hit on me upon learning I was his niece. I was maybe 14, 15 at the time. When this was mentioned to the rest of the family in shock that someone would be so disgusting so openly, I was told no, yeah, Uncle so and so is just like that. You learn to get used to it, absolutely sickening. Oh. I just remembered a story my grandma told me years ago, so not somebody I'm related to, but so grandma's friends with this couple that, when they met, originally bonded over both being adopted. They fall in love, have 3 perfectly healthy kids, get some equally healthy grandkids etc. The fact that they have the exact same birthday is just a convenient coincidence. And maybe a bit of a at least he'll never forget when mine is joke. And then one of them gets sick and needs a donor, so off to get tested they go. Yup, twins. Grandma gets told matter-of-factly over lunch in a busy restaurant during the "so we haven't had time to see each other in almost 5 years. Here's what's been happening" part of the conversation. They had a big family-wide "what do we do" discussion, but since they were 30 odd years in with no obvious ill effects, they pretty much just updated a dozen or so medical records and called it a day. They know, they deny. I cut them out of my life. My kid was born with massive medical issues and died 2 years ago at the age of 29. I'm so sorry for your loss. You had a kid with a relative? It's explained a bit further down. Someone read through her post history. She was raped by her brother. Jesus frick, that's heavy. My mom's grandparents were first cousins. They had 8 kids, one died of cancer at age 18, and my grandpa has Asperger's. My family doesn't really talk about it much other than it makes for an awkward joke every once in a while. They lived in Brazil in a small town way back when, so I guess it wasn't as big of a deal as it would be today. The branches often grow back into the trunk. My dad's brother married a woman whose mother is also her sister. My great-grandparents were first cousins. No one gives or gave a bit. 1910s rural Ireland, as far as I'm aware, it was arranged to keep a farm in the family. My great-grandfather was killed in 1925 by a runaway horse and cart when my granny was 4, and they lived with her grandparents on and off, and with her uncle and his wife on and off. The uncle was an eccentric postman, inventor, beekeeper and photographer. He used to take them on little holidays to beaches and landmarks, paid for by photographing people next to landmarks. She had many fond memories of her uncle and aunt. Her grandfather and all other uncles were carers, basically heavy haulage before trucks. They had transport solutions for everything pulled by teams of horses. Stone, milk, dry goods, you name it. They also ran a horse-drawn bus. Funny enough, none of them stayed in transport after mechanization. By that time they'd all come up enough in the world to get their kids well educated. Several of them became teachers, nurses, doctors, priests, nuns, etc. So basically it all worked out. Okay Reddit guys, subscribe now to make me happy.